Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation of the CURC webinar series entitled Collaborations with Academics, Student Projects, and Campus Engagement. My name is Eric Halverson, and I'm the Program Coordinator for the College and University Recycling Coalition, and I'll be your moderator today. For those of you not familiar with CURC, the College and University Recycling Coalition is a member-based organization that works to grow collegiate recycling and waste reduction efforts by fostering technical information exchange and networking opportunities between the staff and student leaders that are implementing these programs. Today's program is part of our free CURC webinar series, which is designed to highlight innovative campus programs and provide trends and perspectives on a broad range of operational, educational, and other topics related to the collegiate recycling and sustainable materials management. Today's program is the first webinar in our 2020 series. I want to thank our partner, AASHE, the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, for the logistical and promotional support of this webinar series. Now, before we begin, we have a few housekeeping notes to go over. If you have problems with your audio or video during the webinar, you can reach a live technician by calling GoToWebinar's customer support line at 800-263-6317. That's 800-263-6317. And to avoid background noise, we placed all but our panelists' lines on mute. We encourage you to submit questions, however, by using the dashboard on the right side of your screen. Simply click the plus symbol where it says questions to type us a note, and we will read as many of these as possible out loud at the end of each presentation. Copies of today's presentation slides will be available to download and a recording available to stream within the next day or so from the CURC website. And you will also receive a follow-up email with a link to this recording in the next day or so. Now, last fall, we sent out a survey to our CURC members asking what they wanted to learn about in our 2020 series, and how to collaborate with academic programs was right there at the top of the list. So on today's webinar, we'll hear two presentations explaining the ways these campuses have created programs that help students learn, but also help the entire campus boost their recycling or lower their environmental impact. We'll start with a presentation from Tessa Meredith, a student at Brigham Young University. Then we'll hear from Brittany Morra, recycling coordinator with Clemson University facilities in South Carolina. Tessa Meredith is currently a student at Brigham Young University. She's studying experience design and management and is minoring in environmental science. She is passionate about experiential learning and sustainability and hopes to be able to merge these two passions together. Involved in a variety of clubs and groups, she is currently the project lead for the BYU Student Sustainability Initiative's Recycling Project. And in her free time, you can find Tessa cheering at her favorite concerts, traveling somewhere new, or exploring the outdoors. So now, I'd like you all to welcome Tessa.
All right, hi guys, I'm just getting my presentation brought up real quick. I think it should be showing right there. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that introduction, Eric. And I'm just really excited to be here today and to be presenting to you all on something that myself and a group of students have been working really hard on for the past year, which is SSI, the BYU Student Sustainability Initiative. To start off, I just wanted to share one of the aims of the BYU education. A BYU education prepares students who can make a difference in the world, who are able to improve the moral, social, and ecological environment in which they and their families live. I have bolded here the words ecological environment because although this is included in the educational aims of our university, a number of us students have seen a gap in the fulfillment of this aim. So in creating SSI, our hope is to be able to better fulfill this university aim, not only as students are here at the university, that after they graduate and they go on for the rest of their lives as well. Our goal for the Student Sustainability Initiative is as follows: to be able to establish a university-sanctioned student-led sustainability office that can, 1, help BYU administration make more environmentally friendly decisions, and 2, get students involved in sustainable projects on campus. And when we talk about a sustainability office, what we are envisioning is a central location on campus where students are able to go and get involved in sustainability and learn how to live a more environmentally friendly lifestyle. The committee within the office would be composed of students and mentored by faculty. The office would also provide leadership opportunities for students and, as a whole, increase sustainability at BYU. And our initiative differs from a normal campus club that's organized on campus. As of right now, we're not officially recognized by the university. So we've been able to avoid some of the red tape and regulations that normally campus clubs have to comply to. And our end goal is to be much more than just a campus club. Again, reiterating, we are wanting an office of sustainability that can endure as students leave and enter Brigham Young University, and to be able to make impacts on the university as a whole. So to be able to reach our goal of establishing a sustainability office and committee at BYU, these are the means by which we intend to do so. Number 1, carrying out projects aimed at campus sustainability. 2, meeting with faculty and administration to advocate for a sustainability committee. 3, creating a community through student support and involvement. All of these 3 things we believe are really key factors to be able to help us reach our goal of an Office of Sustainability. And for the last year, again, we've been working really hard to be able to carry out these 3 things, and we've been able to see a lot of success in each one of them. And I'm just going to take a moment now, specifically on this first one of carrying out projects aimed at campus sustainability, and describe a few of the different projects and efforts that we have done to be able to reach this goal. The first event that we officially held with SSI was a BYU Alternative Transport Fair. And this BYU Alternative Transport Fair was intended to share with students the many ways that they could get around the city and campus without using a car. We had a number of different booths and from different organizations like BYU Bicycle Collective, which their goal is to be able to have sustainable bicycles, have a place for people to donate their bikes and people to repair their bikes and get around the city more sustainably. Another example is we had the UTA Transportation, which is Utah's public transportation system, which BYU students actually have access to their buses, to the trains, through their ID cards. And all of these different booths were sharing with students their own form of alternative transportation. Not only was this a successful event to be able to introduce students to this topic of alternative transportation, but it was also our first opportunity as SSI to be able to introduce ourselves to the student body. We ourselves had a booth set up there, and we were able to get people to sign up if they were interested in being involved with the different projects we were intending to do. Sorry about that, had a little glitch. Perfect. So that first event of having that transport fair was really our first step to be able to now have an audience of different students to be able to speak to. And we've been able to speak to them through the means of our BYU SSI Instagram account. And our Instagram account started as a place, again, first off, to just introduce ourselves, the people involved in SSI, and as well to introduce our goals and what we were trying to accomplish. This is also where the students were able to sign up if they were wanting to be involved in projects. And since then, our Instagram influence has just been able to continue to grow and have even more success. As you can see here, we currently have 435 followers on Instagram. And not only are we updating students on different projects that we have, but our Instagram is a way to be able to educate students daily on different sustainability efforts that they can do in their lives. For example, in the top right, we have here one of the posts that we put at the beginning of January, which was a month-long Green New Year's resolutions campaign. So every day in the month of January, we put a different sustainability tip that people could try and consider in their own lives. At the beginning of this last winter semester was another project that we held, and that was a plastic bag drive. For 2 weeks, we had collection boxes located in the freshman dorms and eating halls to collect extra plastic bags that people weren't using. By the end of the drive, we had collected over 500 plastic bags. Not only were we able to divert these plastic bags from going to waste, but we collaborated with another organization on campus to make sure these plastic bags were put to good use. Why Serve Refugees makes mats out of plastic bags that are delivered to refugees all over the world. Collaborating with another BYU organization was a big step for us in continuing to create a community around campus that's surrounded on sustainability. In the last 2 weeks, we have also decided to start a weekly SSI newsletter. This newsletter is a way of helping us reach our goal by continuing to increase our range of influence, to provide a professional layout, which differs from our Instagram and helps us reach different audiences. It also continues to update on projects and how to get involved, and it educates on relevant and local topics. The 2 newsletters we've sent out so far, one of them discussed on sustainable diets, and the other one talked about the cost of dirty air. And both of those topics were related to here in Provo and at BYU and how it impacted the students really in their lives right here and right now. Other project ideas we have had and that we're in development of carrying out have been SSI campus information booths, creating student composting, holding a donation and recycling drive during move-outs, improving biking and walking safety, an information campaign that we would call Why We Care Week, and creating a campus garden. And we have a number of other ideas as well that are not listed. And obviously these projects themselves are important in their own way and have different positive outcomes that we hope that will come with them. But as a whole, we want to be able to use all of these projects, again, to reiterate our overall goal of being able to establish an office of sustainability and a committee with that. Now I just want to be able to take a moment. Again, it was mentioned that I am the project lead for the recycling project that SSI has been doing. So I want to take a little bit of time to be able to explain that recycling project that I have developed with a number of other volunteers and that we are in the process of carrying out right now. This project we have called is Torted Bins. Torted Bins started as we recognize inconsistencies in recycling across campus, intending to improve the efficiency and consistency of campus recycling, not only to divert unnecessary trash to going to landfills, but just having more accessibility to recycling available to BYU students and hopefully to be able to have them recognize the importance of recycling and educate them on that as well. We dubbed the recycling project as Torted Bins as we've just been touring from one campus building to another, assessing the recycling needs. The way we have been carrying out the recycling project has been through a 4-step process of assessing, reporting, binning, and mapping. So to be able to describe those 4 steps, starting with the first one, the assessment is when we go into a building for the first time, kind of becoming recycling detectives. We have printed out maps for each floor of the building, and as we come across different recycling stations, as we call them, we begin the assessment. So we physically mark on the map where the bins are located, which bins are available there at that location, and what changes need to be made. And we decide what changes need to be made based off of if that recycling station is missing one of the 4 bins that BYU Recycling provides, if there are duplicates of the same bin in one location that could be better used in a different location, and as well as a location as a whole we feel could be moved to a more highly trafficked area in the building and get used better. Once we have noted these changes, we move on to our next step of reporting, and we report our numbers to BYU Recycling, who provides us with the bins necessary. And BYU Recycling has been a huge part of this project because without them, we would not be able to make the changes that we felt like are needed. And also, we just had to report to building maintenance to approve specific bin changes if we're changing one location, if we're changing the bins from one location to another in the building, and just making sure that changing that location is approved by building maintenance. The next steps we have are binning and mapping. Through student volunteers, we're able to bin the building by following our assessment maps and adding and removing the necessary bins as we've made those assessments for. And finally, mapping is done by making a digital map showing where the recycling stations are located and what can be found at each station. Just right here, I wanted to show an example. This is one of the digital maps that I've made of the library's 3rd floor. And zooming in, we can see the station numbers 301 to 309. And underneath the location numbers shows what recycling is available there. For example, over here at station 308, we can see that there's just a number 4, which that shows the 4 recycling bins that BYU Recycling provides, which are plastic, aluminum, paper, and newspaper. But for example, over here at station 303, we have 2 papers, 1 newspaper, and 2 plastics. And that was just determined during our assessment portion of the process of when we decided what needed to be there. This is just one more map that is a little bit more simplified than the last one. On this one, we can clearly see that there are 3 recycling stations, and each one of them has the 4 necessary bins that BYU Recycling provides. For Torta Bin specifically, I have come up with a list of different goals that I am striving to achieve with the help of SSI volunteers. The first one is being able to complete this first 4-step process for all the main campus buildings. The second, having digital maps accessible on an SSI website that we're in the process of developing right now. The third, increasing awareness on why and how we recycle at BYU. And fourth, using this project as evidence of sustainable student involvement, which will go to our overarching goal again as SSI of establishing a sustainability office and committee. So just in summary, I wanted to return to that main goal of SSI, which I just mentioned, to establish a university-sanctioned student-led sustainability committee through 1, campus sustainability projects, 2, receiving support from faculty and administration, and 3, creating a community of campus involvement. This is all I have prepared for you right now, but if we do have that extra time for questions, I'd like to open that up. Not only for questions, but also suggestions. If any of you have any thoughts of things that either projects that we could do or being able to reach faculty and administration or creating this community of a campus, different suggestions that you might have that can be able to help us reach this goal of a student-led sustainability office and committee. I'm just going to leave this slide up that has my contact information as well if you're interested in following our SSI Instagram page and being updated with those. We'd love to be able to have your support. And I'll also just say thank you so much for listening and letting me share with you what we've been doing here at Brigham Young University as students and creating the Student Sustainability Initiative.
Thank you, Tessa. We do have a few questions here, and as a reminder, as Tessa mentioned, if you have a question, please click on the plus sign next to the word question on the GoToWebinar dashboard. That should be on the right side of your screen. That was great to hear. I mean, a lot of what the students are doing themselves, it sounds like at BYU, are what entire campus sustainability offices are trying for already. So very ambitious.
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest thing for us is that we don't have a sustainability office here at BYU. So before some of us students graduate, we want to make sure that that's something that we can leave there and that those projects can continue going forward.
Yeah. We have a question here, and I was wondering myself about what kind of barriers or difficulties have you had trying to push through some of these projects that you want to see at your university, and what kind of support, especially from BYU Recycling, have you received from maybe organizations across campus that want to see you succeed?
Right. Yeah, that's an awesome question. Some of the barriers for sure have been with that number 2 bullet of receiving support from faculty and administration. We've had so many people who have been on our side with wanting an Office of Sustainability and are backing us up for that. But on the other hand, there have been a lot of roadblocks that we've hit of just different administration, them not being able to see the vision that we see, and just trying to help them understand why we think that having an Office of Sustainability and a committee for that would be important for our campus. And again, going back to those BYU aims and being able to show them that this is one of the aims of our university. So I think that has been one of the biggest roadblocks, is just the logistics of how we could get the sustainability office on campus. I specifically am not involved in that process as much as some of our the SSI leads who have been going around to a different administration and faculty, and they've been pitching this idea to them, but they've been doing that for about the last year. On the other hand of things, from the support that we have received, me personally, I work really closely with Bill Rudy with BYU Recycling, and he's been an awesome help, not only, as I mentioned, of getting us the bins available for different buildings on the recycling project, but he is just very enthusiastic of making sustainability bigger at BYU and making sure the students know that's something that we're about and something that we're passionate about. He's been able to pitch different ideas to us as well of doing different department reports, going around from different departments on campus, seeing how well they do on sustainability, how they can improve, reporting down those things, and working with the different departments on campus and how we could help them individually. He's also given us support if, just simple things, if we want to make t-shirts as SSI. And he's just been a great mentor that we've been able to go to be able to brainstorm different ideas as us as SSI of what we can do, even more to be able to push for our ultimate goal.
As BYU Recycling found the mapping project that you're working on to be helpful, and we have a few questions here about if you could provide maybe a template or something that you used for that kind of, or maybe a process to develop those maps. And then if you numbered each of the recycling stations in a consecutive number fashion, for example, did each number of the site reflect a unique location?
Right. Okay. So going from the first, sorry, will you repeat that first question one more time?
Yeah. Just how helpful has the recycling mapping been, especially not only as students demonstrating their passion for the increased recycling, but for the BYU recycling program?
Right. So the maps as a whole, we have a few different ideas of how we'd like to use them at the end. One of the biggest things, again, for shooting for our goal of having a sustainability office, the maps will be physical evidence of this is work that we've done. These are changes that we've made in each campus building. And so one of the things that we want to be able to show BYU and the administration of BYU is that students are passionate about this. They are willing to put in the work. They're willing to put in hours to make sustainability bigger on campus. So showing these maps and saying, we've gone through every campus building. This is where we've mapped out where recycling has happened, where recycling is, what changes we've made. That'll be kind of our physical proof and evidence. If those maps are used in other ways, that is something that we're totally open to as well and would be excited. If BYU Recycling wants to use those just to make sure that those recycling stations stay the same, or if any changes want to be made in the future, that those could be made on top of it, we're totally open to the maps be using for those purposes as well. And as I had mentioned as well, we are planning on posting our maps on an SSI website when we have that developed. So then they'll be able to be available to students as well if they feel the need to find where recycling is in the building that they're located. As for the map templates, I actually just went to the university's accessibility office's website because they have available to the public maps of each campus building. So I've been really lucky that just available on the internet, there are maps of every building of campus. So I download those maps, and just going through Google Docs, I've been able to physically put in those station numbers. And I'll go back to that slide real quick. This map was something that was already provided. I didn't make the map itself, but I put in the station numbers and what was at each station. And the station numbers do correlate to where exactly that is physically. So if you were next to this classroom, you would be able to find this recycling station right next to it. I think that answered all of those questions. If I missed something.
No, I think you hit all the points there.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for filling us in on that. And I think it would be interesting for our members to see how that might increase or change the diversion rate or increase the recycling production at your campus. Do you know if they have measured any differences or any things over time? I know that this might be a newer project.
Right. That was one thing we discussed. And one of the things that we talked about with BYU recycling was that just some of the past data was a little bit skewed. And so being able to see if the different changes that we were making, if it was making an overall change of how many things were being recycled, it'd be a little bit hard to track that. One of the things that I do know that makes a difference, however, is as I've gone through different buildings, is seeing that the changes have remained. When I've gone, for example, we've done only a handful of the buildings so far, but when I previously went into, for example, the library, there was only maybe a paper and a newspaper. And now every time I go to that same spot in the library, it not only has the paper and the newspaper, but the plastic and aluminum. Even though we don't have the physical numbers to see how much more plastic and aluminum was because of those two bins, it kind of has given me peace of mind that I know that plastic and aluminum are not getting thrown away right there, instead that they have to also be recycled.
I think you trailed off a bit at the end there, Tessa. Are you still there? Could you speak up maybe? All right. Well, Tessa will be available again at the end of the whole presentation to take some more questions, but there is the email that you can reach Tessa at. Tessa, you're there?
Yeah, I'm here. Somehow I got unconnected from the audio, but I'm back.
Awesome. So maybe the last few sentences you said of the last question.
Okay. Yeah, I was just describing that although we don't have physical numbers of how much more is being recycled, when I've been able to go into the campus buildings that we have already done that 4-step process for, instead of just having a newspaper and a paper in one extremely highly trafficked area, it's now been able to have the newspaper, paper, plastic, and aluminum. And just from that, we can know that in that area, instead of those things being thrown away with the trash can that's right there, that they are being recycled.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing again. And Tessa's contact information, if you don't write down now, will be available in the follow-up email. We appreciate you and so much of your time.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right, everybody. Our next presenter is Brittany Morra. Brittany is the recycling coordinator for Clemson University. She focuses on education and outreach for the recycling and composting programs there. And Brittany is also the chair of the College and University Recycling Coalition. So welcome, Brittany.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, my screen should be up and running. I'm going to talk to y'all today about how Clemson Recycling collaborates with students we actually collaborate a lot with students. I'm only going to talk about the top 3 today since we only have 20 minutes. So that would be the creative inquiries, internships, and collaboration with student organizations. But we do also have a work study program where students that need extra funding can work for organizations on campus for class projects. So that is, we worked with faculty in the past on projects they have for their classes. And then we also work with the local high school special education department so that students there can have an on-site work experience with our crew at Kite Hill Recycling. So creative inquiries are a project-based experiential learning and problem-solving course. This is, students actually need to enroll in this course. The program was established in 2005 and it's open to the entire university. So any faculty and staff at the university is welcome to submit project ideas to the program. And if they're accepted, students can sign up for projects that interest them. The faculty and staff mentor and the students that enroll in the course work on the designated project together, and then projects need a semesterly deliverable, but the projects don't have to be just a semester long. They can be ongoing projects as long as they have something to show at the end of the semester. So we've utilized this quite a bit. The pros are that you can have a diverse team to help solve your problems. Students can bring knowledge to the table that you don't have. So if you want to work on composting, but you don't know anything about composting, you can have students work as a creative inquiry that do know about that. Other than the mentor's time, it's free, and students may become full-time employees if you're looking for a full-time employee. We've actually had several CI students become full-time employees for us. The downside is that you're relying on student interest and work. So if no one enrolls in your creative inquiry for the semester, your project may be at a standstill if you're relying on that student work to make it happen. It does require planning and dedicated time each week outside of regular work hours. For us, for our employees that have done this, it's not considered regular billable hours. They actually enroll as a CI separately and get paid separately from their regular salaries. We've used these 4 creative inquiries in the past or currently: composting, black soldier fly, which is a form of composting that we actually use at our facility, biodiesel, and food waste reduction. I want to talk about composting a little bit more in depth, but if y'all at any point have any questions about the other ones, feel free to contact me. Our composting program that we have now actually began as a creative inquiry, and the gentleman on the top right holding the biofuel canisters, that's David Thornton, also known as Carlos, because we have an abundance of Davids on campus. He started this composting initiative as a CI and ended up becoming an employee. Excuse me, becoming an employee and creating the program that we have now. While he was working here, David Haynes, also known as Buddy, on the right, he was a student worker with David Thornton, and then he became hired on as a full-time employee and now runs our composting facility. So as you can see, it's easy to have students that are interested in a topic, get hands-on experience with it, and want to stay on and grow the program. So these CIs have a really great impact on the university and also on the students. We, as you've heard, now have a composting program as a result of this creative inquiry program. We composted over 1 million pounds of food scrap last year. So that's a pretty decent impact. We have biodiesel in the biodiesel trailer. The product from that we actually use in our vehicle fleet at the composting facility. And then from the food waste reduction, we have diversion from composting by decreasing food waste and increasing food donations. All of these are giving students valuable problem solving and subject matter experience. So if your university doesn't have a program like a creative inquiry, it may have a different research-based learning option. I would just suggest that you know how much research guidance you'll need to provide and what the research standards are for the program. If it's a very intense research-based program, and students are looking to get a peer-reviewed journal article out of it, that's a very different research knowledge base that you'll need to have than a poster or a presentation at the end of the project. So moving on to internships, we actually have two different types of internships on campus that we at Recycling use. We have UPIC internships and Clemson Life internships. The Clemson Life internships are for students that have intellectual disabilities. So you can see Ty with our Kite Hill crew right here. He comes and helps at the recycling center a couple times a week. And we really love having him around. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the UPIC internships. So our UPIC internships are through the Michelin Career Center on campus. This Career Center has this program already in place, and one of the really great benefits of doing internships through the UPIC program is that UPIC funds half of the intern salaries. So we're able to get 2 interns for the price of 1. The jobs are posted on UPIC's highly frequented job board, and students are required to complete a certain number of hours to get credit. They enroll in it as a course. And I found that this helps students commit to 10 hours a week or 10 to 15 hours a week and not let the internship kind of fall to the wayside as their academics take priority. So the benefit of having interns is that, at least for us, they keep our social media presence alive. I'm not trained in marketing, and so having marketing interns keeps us going. Interns make game day recycling possible. They organize student volunteers, so we have students that come for game days and hand out bags to tailgaters, and without that, our whole recycling process would be a lot more difficult. Students also host tabling and other engagement events, and I could go out there at the table even though I look like a student and pretend to be a student, but I'm not. So it's really nice to have students actually engaging with students. So if you don't have a intern program currently, you could see if the Career Center at your university has intern options. And if they don't, you can hire directly through your department. I'd recommend advertising on the Career Center job site. Those tend to get more traffic than other job sites, or you can advertise directly to student groups with skills that you'd like your interns to have. So in the picture below, we have our composting interns, and we usually market to biosystem engineers because they really love composting. And so that's a good way to get the word out to those types of students that you're looking for positions. So I actually have Caleb Todd here, who was a UPIC intern with us for 2 semesters, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what his experience was working with us.
Hey y'all, so my name's Caleb Todd. I'm a junior environmental natural resources at Clemson, and I actually got lucky enough to join Brittany in the recycling program in January of 2019. And I worked from January to May, and then took the summer off, came back from August to December through December. And for me, the internship was very two-sided in what we really did. It was a mix of student and faculty interaction through both outreach events like the tabling that Brittany mentioned and social media. The tabling events were very much, we would have something set up for students to come up and do and receive a prize in completing the activity, and it really drove communication between us and the people who were coming up to the table, and drove a greater understanding of what the recycling program actually does. I was one of the leads in helping coordinate the game day recycling volunteers. So I would reach out to, I think at the beginning of the semester last year, I reached out to like 50 organizations to see if they wanted to come send 10 to 15 volunteers for game day recycling, either to pass out bags or actually sort of recycling from the game day. And the other side was just seeing the process of our facilities, something that I realized a lot of Clemson students don't understand, and I would assume this might be a general trend as well, is that we put our bottles or we put our cans into the bins, but we don't necessarily always understand what happens after that. And being able to be an intern really enlightened me in that sense to understand what the process was past me putting it in the bin. And even partly what the process is into how we decide what goes in the bin and like how the signage affects what goes in the bin. And those two things really led to me having a greater understanding and appreciation about the recycling process, and has led to me becoming much more involved in the advocacy on campus for the recycling program, other sustainability programs in general. So this experience has just been a great one for me, and I think for my co-intern at the time as well.
Thanks, Caleb. He was gracious enough to come back and do 2 semesters with me, so it couldn't have been too bad. All right, so student organizations. This is another way that we collaborate with students on campus, and we collaborated with the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, with HFES, for research-based projects. I am not a researcher, and so being able to employ a psychology group that is versed in research to help with 3 projects, the Custodial Satisfaction Survey, a Signage Study, and a website update, was immensely helpful. We were able to do something that we may not have been able to do otherwise. So I'm going to use the Signage Study as an example. First, the student group did background research through a literature review. If I would have done this, I would have looked online for recycling signage or recycling studies or signage studies, but they were able to take their perspective as psychologists and break it down even farther into things like how well can your eyes focus on something from a certain distance? What images should you use based on semantic distance, which is how far the item in your hand is from the image on the sign, and things like that. So it was really nice to be able to see the approach they took to something that could have been very different if we'd done it on our own. So after they did the literature review, they did a usability analysis of our current signage and used that usability analysis to inform the designs that they used to create a prototype. Once they created a prototype, they were able to do a 30-person study and evaluate the sorting accuracy and timing for the existing signs and use that as a baseline to measure how well the new signage performed. Here's an example of the iterative process they used to create the prototype. So on the left, you'll see our current sign that says bottles only. It has abstract images, some upside down items, cartoon-like icons. So they took this and they made the second version, which has all upright items. They're labeled. The title is changed from bottles only to plastic and glass because people did not realize that they could put glass in the original sign, so adding that was important. But the downside to this sign is that the items were overlapping and the location of the labels was a little bit challenging as far as being able to figure out what each label was applying to. So they made the next iteration, which has all the images upright but separated and labeled directly underneath them. But they found that the blue on the background made for lack of contrast with some of the items, like the plastic bottle, for example. So in the last iteration, they have a white background with the blue striping to kind of label that it's the plastic and glass bin, with all of the items upright as pictures, because pictures are closer to actual items than icons are. And this is the sign that we tested. So being able to work with student organizations has impacts both for the students and for us. Students approach the problem differently than we could have on our own. And we were able to tackle a project that we might not have otherwise, or we would have gone about it differently. If we had done this on our own, it probably would have been a little bit more trial and error and piloting, which is more time consuming. You're hoping that the results you're getting are going to be consistent across campus. You're not, like, you can use your intuition to understand why it works, but you might not know exactly why some things are working better than others. And this kind of gave us reasons why things should be designed a certain way to test, and then gave us actual data before and after to work with. Students get practice working with a client on a real world project and make it to see the ideas put into practice. So for students that are in an academic world, it's really nice to be able to let them experience what it is to work with a client on a real world project, the challenges with that, because in a hypothetical world, there are different timelines, you can have infinite budgets, and that's not necessarily the case in the real world. So for our program, one possible impact, we're still in the process of testing this in the wild, but there could be a reduction in contamination as a result of the redesign, and that would have a large scale impact on our recycling program. So they estimated somewhere between 50 and 70% reduction in contamination. I would even be thrilled with a 10% reduction. We process between 2,000 and 3,000 tons a year of recycling. So even 10% is somewhere along the 500,000 pound mark that we're not actually having to sort out. So if you know that you have a problem that you'd like student help with, I would say start with identifying students that have the skills that you need to execute the project. So for example, maybe looking to industrial engineers for process improvement, to marketing majors for outreach initiatives, or to political science people for any kind of policy related things. Try contacting faculty in those majors. They may be able to give you some information about student groups or student projects or even classes that you could send out emails to, or have projects within those classes that work on your project. Look for student organizations that relate to your needs. So most universities have a database of organizations, and you can just go on there, see if there are organizations that blatantly have in their title something that relates to what you're looking for. And then if you do find students, you're going to have to sell it. You're going to have to make sure that the students know that it's going to be worth their time, and that they're getting as much out of it as you are. So we're here to support the students, but they can also support us. If you have any questions, you can type them in the box. And if you ever want to contact me about anything I didn't get to talk about today, please feel free to email me anytime.
Thank you, Brittany. We appreciate your time so much. And each one of those was a very different creative way to approach a collaboration with students at Clemson. We have a question here more about your infrastructure. Is compost collected on your campus from all campus buildings or just dining facilities?
So right now it's all campus dining facilities, and then we have 2 or 3 smaller collections within buildings if there is a dining facility nearby, or like there's a little cafe, like not cafe, but a pod. I don't know if y'all have them at your universities, but we have a pod that has a composting bin. And then there are a couple composting bins that we have open to students in housing, located at 2 or 3 of the different housing areas. So it's not like a full widespread at every bin there's composting right now. Anyway.
Sounds great. And for all of these different student internship programs with your established recycling facilities office, has there been any problems? And if there have been, with perhaps people might be like, students may not be as committed if it's just for a class. I don't know if you have any experiences like that, but what kind of things would you have you had to work through before if people have some apprehensions about reaching out to students for some collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, students are always going to put their academics first. So you have to assume that even the most passionate ones will at sometimes have to put their schoolwork before their internship. But as far as our interns have gone, the time I've been here, everyone has been really great and really committed to putting in the hours that the internship requires. Some weeks are a little bit more than others, so I kind of let interns know, or potential interns know as I'm interviewing them, that certain events require more time, and so there's flexibility in when they work their hours depending on if there's an event or if they want to work from home or that kind of thing. Other than that, I think the best way, I mean, you can't account for everything, obviously. Life happens, things happen, but when you're interviewing possible interns, kind of really being clear about what the expectations are up front, and then trying to keep them motivated and engaged with why it's important that they work on what they're doing, let them see that what their work is amounting to. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Obviously, it seems that you're doing something right if you can bring one of your interns here to join us for the webinar. Great to have that intern here to share that perspective. Thank you so much, Brittany. We appreciate your time once again. So if there are any other questions, you can send them along. If you don't get to type them in today, then we can send them along to Brittany or Tessa, but their contact information, if you haven't already written that down, will be in the follow-up email to this presentation. And when we have a question here about seeing the presentations later, and we will be able to upload these presentations to the CURC website within the next day or so, and you can find the link to that resource in the follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow. But if it's not there, then you should visit our website, www.curc3r.org. And if you go to the webinar section, you click on the webinar archive or the 2020 webinar series, within the next day, we'll try to put up the recordings and the link to those presentations, these actual slides that our panelists were willing to share with us. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So with some final announcements, thank you for joining us. Our next CURC webinar will be on April 16th. That's a Thursday. It's on plastic policy, innovations on water bottle bills, bans, and behavior change. We had a lot of interest in people learning more about how people are dealing with plastic on their campus, and especially plastic water bottles. So you can go ahead and look for that coming up soon. It will explore strategies and solutions surrounding plastic bottle sales on campuses, and exploring what policies have led to higher diversion rates and more productive programs. Also, some other things to plug. Next weekend, the Southeastern Student Sustainability Conference is happening in Boone, North Carolina. It's a peer leadership training and collaboration with interns, university faculty, staff, and advisors all from around the Southeast. We encourage people to go if you can make it. If you haven't seen us promoting that in the past, it's probably in the last week to make your decision if you want to go. And also the National Zero Waste Conference is March 18th through the 19th in Berkeley, California. That's hosted by the National Recycling Coalition. So maybe we'll see some of you there later this spring. Following this webinar, you'll receive a prompt as well to complete a quick survey. And we encourage you to take a minute to give us some feedback on today's program. And finally, we'd like to thank AASHE again for their support of the 2020 webinar series. We couldn't do it without them. So one last time, join me in thanking Tessa and Brittany for their presentations today. And once again, you'll receive the links to their presentations and a recording of the program within the next day or so. So for all other information about CURC, I hope you visit our website, www.curc3r.org. And I hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.